This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Each week, Tom and I are committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions. Thank you so much for joining us. We always love having you tune in. Tom, my friend, great to be back with you for another week. What's going on in your world?
Hey, not much. Enjoying football season. I enjoy football, college, pro, you name it. If it's for football and it's not round, like real footballs are not round,
right?
I love it. Okay. So, contrary to what the rest of the world says.
Yes. Well, if you're new to Tom, why don't you share quickly why football is so special in your life?
I used to be a part of the 𝗨𝗏𝗺𝗻 football program back in the 70s and 80s when we really, really were the best of the best. And they wrote the book Friday Night Lights. Even after I left there, they wrote the book Friday Night Lights about that program. But it's just something that was instilled in my younger years of being an adult. I was able to be a part of that program and so thankful for the 7 years I had there. By the way, we lost 4 games in 7 years.
Wow, such an amazing track record. And I love that you carry that same work ethic into financial planning. You really do. And there's so many analogies with football that apply, right?
Absolutely. There really are. And just that discipline. And I remember the guy from the Dallas Morning News came out and it was my responsibility or opportunity to show him through our dressing room. And all of the players, the cleats are hung a certain way, the jerseys are hung a certain way, even the practice jerseys, and a certain way, the socks are there a certain way. And the guy was never played football in his life. And he was sort of making fun of us. And he said, "So do you think that helps you win football games?" No, but there's just something in life about being disciplined and having a structure. And every one of those lockers looked alike. And we knew every year that if we were down in the fourth quarter, and what was funny, Kristin, the other team knew as well, if we were down in the fourth quarter, they knew Mojo was going to win. Okay. They knew we were going to do it. And that discipline and that regimenting, building in that regiment of practice and work ethic, where the biggest thing you can do is not do all kind of special things, but just not make mistakes. And talking about that and talking about football, when you're getting ready to retire, you don't need the flashy, shiny objects. You just need to not make mistakes. And most people are going to be pretty well off.
Yeah, for sure. Don't fumble the ball, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, to that point, I mean, this ties in perfectly to what we're going to be talking about this weekend. I know you've crafted together this show, Tom. We're going to be talking about balancing debt and saving for retirement in today's market. And a lot of people, to continue that football analogy, feel like they're wrestling, tackling, coming up against obstacles. It's so easy to fumble these days in today's economic environment, which is very volatile. And a lot of pre-retirees and retirees are finding themselves facing a really tough dilemma. How do you save for retirement while also trying to pay off lingering debt? And that balancing act alone can feel really overwhelming between market uncertainties, inflation, rising costs. But the truth is those goals are both possible when you have the right strategy in place. And so that's what this show is going to be dedicated to, is walking you through practical steps to help you navigate this challenging financial landscape so that you can secure your future without having to sacrifice your present. Tom, before we dive in, I'd love to hear, why did you want to dedicate an entire show to this subject this weekend?
Because it's the real world. I mean, everybody, if you're you're talking to most financial advisors, everybody that walks into their office has $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, and you help them tremendously. And they have a beautiful retirement and go off into the sunset, and it's Shangri-La. But Shangri-La doesn't really exist because in the real world, people have issues. And whether we talk about the financial issues of market uncertainties and inflation and the cost of everything the way it is right now, but people still have families and people still have health and people still have other issues. And when it comes to financial world, people still have debt in retirement. And it's not always just the house that they still owe money on. They might have a student loan debt where they got a Parent Plus loan so that their child could major in psychology and not be able to get a job, but they can run up $125,000 worth of student loan debt. So there's real life things, and saving for retirement is fun. It's sexy. It's nice to be able to retire, but paying off debt and balancing that paying off of debt is a real world issue. Okay.
Yes.
We're not being political here. It's just a real world issue to decide, do I save for retirement or do I pay off the debt? And maybe you can do both and that's what we're going to try to talk about.
For sure. Well, we've got several steps that we're going to be going through here. If you're just joining us, just tuning in, Tom and I are talking today about balancing debt and saving for retirement in today's market and today's economy. And, throughout the show, we're going to be also highlighting how you can get individual help in this process. It starts with getting your very own complimentary retirement blueprint from Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management. Again, if you would like to get your blueprint, you can simply go to mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com, or call 888-930-5609. Step number one we want to talk about is assessing your financial situation. And, this might seem like a very simple step, but I have found, Tom, that often this is the step that keeps people paralyzed because so many folks have what you and I would refer to as that financial junk drawer. Now, when I think of junk drawer, I think of that drawer in my kitchen. I'm sure all of you have a junk drawer out there somewhere. That drawer that kind of just is a catch-all. It collects everything, right? You've got the batteries and the paper clips and the chip clips and the pens and the random notepads of paper. Where's your junk drawer in your house, Tom?
It's right in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's right in the kitchen. So that way, that's where most of the time we spend at our house. We're in the kitchen or in the den right there watching television. And if we need the screwdriver, if we need a paper clip, if we need anything, it's usually in that drawer. Or if not, we probably don't have it around the house, if you know what I mean.
But a lot of times, does yours stay organized and neat and pretty inside?
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Okay.
And you end up going and buying what you don't need because you didn't realize you already had it because it's in the junk drawer, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
This is the problem. So many people, their financial lives, it's like they have a financial junk drawer. You see this when folks come in to meet with you, right?
Absolutely. The first thing you need to do is assess your situation and get that in order. Okay. It's the old deal. If I'm going to take a trip, I not only need to know where I'm going, but I have to know where I am right now.
Where you're starting from.
Yeah. If you're going to call somebody for directions, if you're going to get help and you call somebody up and you say, hey, how do you get to the post office? You've got to know where you are right now. Now, in its core, that concerns all of the aspects of what we call a retirement blueprint at Mosley Wealth Management. And it's concerned, as a lady told us recently, that you're able to go do the things you want to do when you're in your 60s, and you can do them with the peace of mind without wondering and worrying whether you're going to run out of money when you're in your 80s, because you know what that trip's going to cost you. And you have to sit down and assess your financial situation. One of my coaches is a man by the name of Dan Sullivan, who runs Strategic Coach, and he's got a great statement. He says, all progress starts by telling the truth. And some people, when it comes to their financial situation, and some of you are listening to me and you're sitting right there in the middle of this, and we can help you because you're sitting there and you don't really know where you are financially. You don't know what your net worth is. You don't know what you even owe on your house. Some people don't know what their interest rate is. They know what it's about. They don't know how many years they have to pay on the house. And I'm just rattling through a few things that we go through with people when we build a retirement blueprint. And that's just the very first step of assessing where somebody is. We call it getting a vision of where they are, or the envision meeting. And you find out, what's your budget? What does it take? Oh, I don't know. I've always been afraid to find out. Well, that kind of fear can kill you. If you don't know what you're spending now, how can you at all decide what you're going to spend in retirement? How can you at all decide how much you need to be able to spend in retirement? So the very first step is understanding where you stand right now financially. That's critical. And you're going to see there's a debit and a positive and a credit on there. You're going to have some positive things in the 401k and the IRAs, and there's going to be some debt. Probably in most cases. If you're totally debt free and you're 10 years away from retirement, then, to use a real popular word out there right now, you might be considered weird, okay? Because the people, when they're getting ready for retirement, are still carrying that loan, that student loan, that mortgage loan, that home equity line of credit, or those kind of things, or even credit card debt, where you might be paying 26 to 29%. The very first thing you need to do is not worry about how to pay it off yet, but just get a picture of where you are. Get a snapshot of how much you have in the bank, in the accounts, and all of those things. But the very first thing, it's foundational to everything. It includes everything else, is get a financial situation. Get your financial situation in order. And to start to do that, you have to see where you are right now. To take the trip, you have to be able to go.
It's so true. And in knowing what you're working with, I think that's a lot of folks feel overwhelmed if they don't know. I know people have even just brought in statements to you and said, here's what I have. I don't even know what it means, right? But to your point, you help folks figure out where they're starting from. But we know that the number one cause of financial failure is procrastination. So don't let that be you. You have to assess where you are at. And then once you know, then it makes it so much easier to develop that plan to help you get to where you want to go. And that's what that retirement blueprint is all about.
Just this week, I had a client that had been with me for 7 years. They've been with me 7 years, and they brought in a brand new statement. And they said, well, they didn't say it exactly like we're saying it on this show, but basically it was in their junk drawer. You understand what I'm saying? They had completely forgotten about it. And she made the statement, it's only $47,000. Well, $47,000 can fill your tank up with gas in 15 years. So that's really important, okay? So that's what we offer, a financial starting point where we assess your financial situation. We build a financial blueprint, but you've got to call to meet with us to get one.
That number to call is 888-930-5609 to claim your complimentary retirement blueprint. We've only covered the first step. We've got a lot more to cover today on balancing debt and saving for retirement. Stay with us.
Which will you spend more money on in retirement? Food or healthcare? Do you take your investments out of the stock market now that you are retired? How do you know if you've saved enough to stay retired? Will your Social Security check be reduced in the future? How do you produce income from your nest egg to fight costs like taxes and inflation? At Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley and the team take the guessing out of retirement planning by devising a written plan that accounts for all of your concerns. The bigger question, are you going to be okay in retirement? Find out the answers to your retirement questions by calling Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management, 888-930-5609. Income, investments, Social Security, Medicare, longevity, health care. We cover these solutions and all of those other questions on your mind to answer, are you going to be okay in retirement? Call Tom Mosley and Mosley Wealth Management for your own complimentary retirement review, 888-930-5609.
Call the Mosley Wealth Management team at 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and today Tom and I are discussing balancing debt and saving for retirement. Often those can seem like competing priorities, but there's a way to do it correctly when you have the right strategy in place. And it's so crucial. I mean, I think of all the challenges that today's modern retirees are facing, Tom. And if you have debt that you're trying to navigate on top of that, no wonder this feels so overwhelming for folks, right?
Absolutely. Once you get that financial assessment, that's step one. The first thing you need to identify is your debt and prioritize your high interest debt. That will kill you, Kristen, faster than anything else. If you're out there and you're having to pay $100, $200, $500, $600 in interest a month on student loans or credit cards or other high interest situations, you've got to knock those in the head. If you, number one, ever plan on retiring, and number two, if you want to have enough money to retire, that is a hole in the bag that is coming out the bottom. So here's what you do. Once you get your debt all lined up, step number two, prioritize that high interest debt. You can list every debt you have. You can list every credit card you have. That's going to eat away at your income. It's going to make your retirement almost impossible. It is the first thing you need to do. It is a cancer to your retirement plan. Okay. It is an absolute cancer. You need to go in there with a scalpel and you need to eradicate the cancer. So here's how you do it. You list all of your debt and you list the interest you're paying on each debt. Now, I know a real popular guy on the radio, Dave Ramsey, says you list all of your debt and you pay off the easy one first, you pay off the little one, and that gives you a sense of victory. Let's get some real victory, okay? If the biggest one you've got is charging you 27% interest and the smallest debt you've got is charging you 10% interest, you need to pay off the one that's charging you 27% interest first. So be an adult in the room, grow up about this thing, and find the one that you're paying the most interest on. That is your high interest debt, okay? And knock it in the head as much as you can. Pay the minimum on everything else and pay everything extra you can on that one that's got the highest interest rate. You say, well, that might not give me the sense of victory. Well, get over it. You don't need a ninth place trophy. You need to win, okay? You need to win first place when it comes to retirement. And you need to knock in the head that cancer, that high interest debt that you're paying 27%, sometimes 32.6%, Kristen, I saw recently on a credit card, okay?
Yeah.
So that means that they're paying 1/3 of that a year. If you've got $30,000 on a credit card and it's 33% interest, I'm doing some rounding here on the math, you're paying $10,000 a month in interest rate alone. That's money that's not paying off the card. It's just paying the company that loaned you the money. Knock in the head the high interest debt first. Kill it.
Yeah.
Eradicate it. Cut it out. Get it done. And when you get that one done, go to the next highest and the next highest, and you'll be amazed how quickly you can pay it off.
And it'll feel so good each time because each time it'll feel that much more attainable once you've knocked the big ones out of the way, right?
Exactly. I don't want to be like the University of Alabama and play 3 high school football teams in your preseason first few games of the year. Play somebody tough. Play Clemson, play Georgia, play somebody tough, if you know what I mean. And then you can see what you're made out of. If you really want to get serious about it and you've got a serious football team, then you need to play the tough ones first. Play the tough ones first. Get rid of the high interest debt.
Yes. I love the football analogies. They all apply, don't they? For sure.
Right.
Well, that brings me to the next step that we're going to be talking about, which is taking advantage of employer retirement contributions. Now, if we keep this football analogy, Tom, for me, it almost feels like it's this question of, do I focus on offense or do I focus on defense? Meaning, do I focus on saving and putting money away in my retirement accounts, or do I actively pay off this high interest debt? But it's both and, right?
It's both and. Now, what you want to do now, I think any of you out there listening could know it doesn't make sense to be getting a 2% match in your 401k and have a $10,000 debt on a credit card that's charging you 30% interest or close to 30% interest every single year. So you need to play defense first and get those high interest debts paid off. But you don't need to pay off everything, I believe, before you begin to get a sense, like you said in the football analogy, of playing a little offense. Let's take advantage of a 2% match. Now, I don't think you take advantage of a 2% match if you've got a 27% credit card. Okay. But I think once you get some of those paid down, then you begin to venture out and you begin to start saving. Hopefully you can do this in your 20s. You can do it in your 30s. I've seen so many of you out there who come to see us because your parents referred you to us, and you're in your 20s and you went to those booths at registration in college and you got all these credit cards and you got behind the 8 ball.
Mhm.
And I can't believe how many people in their 20s have already had to file bankruptcy or get into some kind of credit protection because of all the credit cards they've got. So you want to get the big high ones paid off, but it's both and. You need to start taking advantage as soon as you can of the employer retirement contributions, especially the 401k match. That is free money.
Mhm.
You're not contributing to that. Whatever you contribute, they'll match. So you are contributing, but that is free money, what they're putting in. And you need to contribute at least enough to get the match. And here's how you build that over the years. You say, well, I can only put in 2% of my salary. They match to, gosh, I can put in $23,500 this year into my 401k. Well, let me tell you how to build that over a period of years. Every time you get a raise, share it with your 401k.
Mhm.
Here's what I mean. If you get a 4% raise, give yourself a 2% raise. Spend 2% more. Give yourself 2% to build a little margin in your monthly or weekly spending. But take 2% and raise your contribution to your 401k 2%. Then you're at 4% of your salary going into the 401k. And the next time you get a 4% raise, give 2% of it to your 401k. Before you know it, and if you're responsible like this, you'll probably also progress in your job because you're a responsible human being and a responsible employee. You'll probably get raise after raise after raise. And before you know it, you're contributing the max and you're not even missing it because you've gotten little raises all along.
Right. And, to that point, if you're just tuning in, or maybe you just jumped in your car and you've got the show on, we are talking today about balancing debt and saving for retirement. And that step you talked about of taking advantage of those employer retirement contributions, I love how you were able to spell it out, Tom, and really help folks understand that every little bit adds up. And I just want to take a minute to share that if you're out there and you need help with your 401k or your workplace retirement plan, one of the things that you can do when you claim your complimentary retirement blueprint is receive free 401k coaching from the team of Mosley Wealth Management. I have to tell you all, I don't know many firms out there that offer this. And so again, that number to call is 888-930-5609, or you're welcome to connect by visiting mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. Well, step number 4 ties so perfectly into step number 3, automating your savings. If you automate it, you don't miss it, right, Tom?
You don't miss it. Exactly. And you don't ever have it in your account and have to do something with it. It's never in your hand. It's never in your account. It's never something you have to turn around and then take a second step. That's the beauty of the 401k. It comes out of a paycheck. Now, I see some of you raising your hand out there and you say, well, I don't have a 401k. I don't have any opportunity like that at my work. Okay, here's what you do. You do, in almost all cases, have the opportunity to have a regular IRA or possibly even better, a Roth IRA. And if you don't have either one of those, for whatever reason, you make too much money and they might not be available, although you can do a backdoor Roth, you just need to start a brokerage account. Quit using what you don't have as an excuse for doing what you need to do. And what you need to do is if that money does get all dumped into your checking account, then you need to automate a withdrawal on that once a month where you know $100, $200, $500, $1,000 is going into an IRA, is going into a Roth, or after you reach the max, is going into a brokerage account. You need to set up an automatic transfer so that goes directly to your retirement account. And also, you can also set that up, an automatic transfer into your debt payments, okay? So that right after you get paid, it's out of sight, out of mind. You've got it taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. Now, you say, well, I've thought about that. I just don't know if it'll work for me. Well, I'll guarantee you one way it won't work if you don't do it. But if you do it, I've seen so many people, and one pastor I used to always say, you automate the importance, the important things in life. And if you automate it, it's important enough that it's just going to happen like clockwork. And to your point, Kristin, you grow to the point where you don't even miss it, even if it's being dumped into your checking account, and then it goes and exits shortly after payday. How do you set these things up? How do you know these little tricks? Because I've been helping people for 29 years. I've got 7 advisors now who help people in the exact same way, where we help you build a retirement blueprint. Everybody starts at a different point. Don't call up and ask for a blueprint because we don't have yours yet. Yours is a blank piece of paper. We have to know where you are, what kind of debt you have. We have to go through these steps. We have to assess your financial situation, look at your debt, see what opportunities you have, and then we have to help you automate it. We can do it all, but you've got to pick up the phone and call us.
And that's the key. This is personalized and customized to you. No 2 retirement blueprints are alike. And so to start yours, again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to see how Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management can help and serve you. That number to call to claim yours is 888-930-5609, or you're welcome to visit mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's Mosley wealthmanagement.com. We encourage you, don't wait, call today so that you can get your plan in your hands. We'll be back with more on today's episode right after this.
Is having $1 million enough to retire? For years, many have considered this to be the goal amount to have for retirement savings, $1 million. But that's the $1 million question. Is that enough for today's modern retiree? Are you sure you've saved enough for a 25 or 30-year retirement? Are you concerned about covering large expenses, including taxes and long-term care? If so, you're not alone. But there is a solution. With a comprehensive financial plan, you can take control of your finances to help you achieve your long-term goals. Call Tom Mosley and the team of Mosley Wealth Management right away to receive your complimentary, comprehensive written financial plan. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Will you outlive your money? It's a scary thought, but it's a real concern for many people. In our opinion, that's why it's crucial to have a solid retirement plan in place. We believe that with proper planning, you can work towards making your money last as long as you do. Don't wait until it's too late to start thinking about your financial future. Call Tom Mosley and the team at Mosley Wealth Management today to learn how we can help you create a retirement plan that can potentially help you obtain peace of mind and security for years to come. Take control of your financial future today by calling 888-930-5609.
For your own no-cost retirement blueprint, call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management, 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Today, Tom and I are discussing balancing debt and saving for retirement. We've shared how often these can feel like competing priorities in someone's life, but with the right strategy in place, it is possible to achieve both things in your life, and really critical, especially in today's economic environment, especially as folks are heading into retirement. It's so critical to make sure that you're on top of your debt. And I know that one of the things that, of course, is often a top priority for people who are nearing retirement, entering retirement, a lot of times it comes with lifestyle adjustments. And so some folks, Tom, are considering downsizing and really using that as a strategy to help balance their debt. Talk about that.
You know, I think the catalyst for that is sort of it weaves its way through everything we've talked about. If somebody really is seriously about, number one, assessing their financial situation, and then number two, they realize they've got that high interest debt that they're trying to pay off. Number three, they start talking about the plans that are available through work where they can get matching contributions. And number four, they begin to automate it. So they're thinking about that. Underlying all of that, Kristin, is a subject that I know you brought up when we were off air for the commercial, and you talked about the budget, okay? And a lot of times when you're going through the process of getting a retirement blueprint, one of the key things we have to have, people come in and they say, do we have enough money to retire? And then we start looking at debt. We start looking at what they've accumulated. We start looking at what they're spending on a monthly basis. And Kristin, I would fairly say that 60% of the people who are within 2 to 5 years of retirement don't have a real solid grasp of their budget, of what they're spending.
Mm.
So when they do get that and they begin to, all of these things don't come one at a time like we're giving them on the show. It's more or less they come little pieces of each one at a time. But when they get that budget, when they've assessed their financial situation and they see their debt and they say, well, I've got to allocate some money for that. I've got to allocate some money to start savings. Let's automate that in whatever's available to you. What you're beginning to do is to begin to look at your budget. And when people do that, Kristin, and those of you who are out there, you may say, I need to cut down on what I'm spending on that. I need to maybe decide that we're not spending enough money on this that we want to do. I used to have a pastor one time. He says, if you'll show me your checkbook, I'll show you your priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I thought it was really great because I have actually had to coach some people that you tell me that your major goal in retirement is to spend time with your grandchildren and money on your grandchildren traveling, but you're not doing any of that. And you're not doing that. So you may need to make some lifestyle adjustments. Now, what could be involved in that? Some of you are sitting there and you've got this humongous house that was great for the 4 kids when they were at home, but they all live all over the place now and they only come home one at a time. And my goodness, hotels are a lot cheaper to rent a room a night by night than they are to pay for that house and to pay the taxes and to pay the insurance and the upkeep on it. So you might want to downsize when it comes to houses. You might want to downsize when it comes to your cable bill. You say houses and cable bills? Right. When you start looking at your financial situation and you get a retirement blueprint and you really start focusing on retirement, everything comes into play. And you say, well, what about, oh yeah, how much money do we spend each month dining out? And do we need to downsize the house? And what about all those subscriptions? How many Apple subscriptions do we have?
Yeah.
What are we paying for all these special channels? And most of the stuff we watch is on Netflix or YouTube. Talk to somebody under 40. They don't even have cable. Okay. And so there's so many things where we drip nickels, whether it comes from just wasteful money. Well, all of that money mounts up
It does.
over a period of time. And you can just go through your budget sometimes. Sit down sometimes, look at all of your credit card statements. If you have credit cards, look at all of your bank statements and just identify things that you don't even know what they are. I mean, you signed up for that show or that thing you wanted to see, and you got that $7.99 a month subscription to something so that you could watch that one show. You watched it and forgot about it.
Yeah.
And for 4 years now, they've been taking $7.99 out of your bank account or your credit card. So those are the kind of things I'm saying. Consider downsizing, consider adjustments, make your priorities known, but it could also come to looking at what you're doing and dripping nickels because you're probably spending more money. You're spending more money in waste that you don't need to be doing.
And to your point, Tom, the financial educator in me has to speak up about the word budget because it has such a negative connotation for so many people. But what I love helping folks understand is that it's not a bad word. It's actually very empowering. It's figuring out where your money's going, because once you know that, then you can tell your money where you want it to go. And I know when I've done this exercise at different times in my life, and my husband and I have sat down and done this, to your point, when you find out you're dripping nickels and you're able to redirect those nickels, which do add up to something different that you want, that's so motivating. That's so exciting. And so I hope that that can help change people's perspective on what it means to actually have a budget, because it should be a tool that is useful and helpful and empowers you.
It's like it's a negative thing if you don't have a goal. Now, here's what I mean by that. If all you're thinking about is what do I have to cut? Okay. If all you're thinking about when you go on a diet is what you can't eat, you're never going to make it.
Right.
Okay. You've got to have that goal of weighing X amount. Okay. You've got to have that goal of being able to wear X dress or X shirt or X pair of pants, or you understand what I'm saying? You've got to have that goal of saying, this is where I want to end up. And therefore it's worth it in the process to get there. That
Mhm.
person that just gets up every morning and runs, I don't understand them, okay? And gets up and works out every single morning. And the reason they do it, though, is they have a goal. They
Mhm.
have a certain end in mind. I want to look like that. I want to be like that. If you go to college, if you in the right way, or you learn a trade, or you learn a craft of any kind, you've got to have a goal of, I want to be proficient in that. I want to be an expert in that. I want to master that. That goal is a lot better than I have to get up and go to class.
Yeah.
Okay. Just that negative approach to it. You have to have the end in mind, and that's what will help you. Consider downsizing. If you start looking at what retirement is going to look like, all of these things begin to fit together. You're going to trim some edges off, and you're going to apply that money in other ways that's going to help you get to your goal.
Well, it makes me think of your process when you build a retirement blueprint for someone. You have the acronym of EASE. And the E in EASE, the first E, stands for envision. And really what you're doing in that first appointment when folks come in to get their complimentary blueprint is to really envision and help them dream, okay, what do you want your retirement to look like? What goals are you trying to achieve? And I think that that is such a fun part of the process. I know it's one of the things that's most rewarding for you and your team, but I think that that helps people understand, okay, this is why we do this, right? This is why you put a blueprint together so that those dreams can actually be achieved.
Exactly. I have to flash back to when I was a youth director. When I was in Odessa, Texas, I was youth director at the largest church in town, and I would always have an exit interview on all of the seniors.
Mm.
And I remember inviting this kid in about 1983, and his name was Paul. And I said, Paul, what's your goal in life? He said, what do you mean? And I said, what do you want to do in life? And he says, I don't know. I want to eat. That was it. That was all he said. And it was hard not to laugh at him, okay? Because Paul's only goal in life was to eat. And, staying up with Paul through the years, that's pretty much all Paul ever accomplished, okay? Because that was his goal and his focus in life. You have to have a more exciting future, or something exciting in the future that you're looking forward to. And a great retirement is a great way to get your financial house in order, because you can't just happen on top of Mount Everest in retirement and say, hey, I was just out taking a walk and I ended up here on the top
Right.
of the retirement mountain. You've got to plan for it.
Yes. Well, I know we were focusing today on balancing debt, but let's talk a little more in depth about what all folks are going to receive when they come in and claim their retirement blueprint, because so much goes into building a blueprint for someone.
It does. And it's really 6 things. The major financial firms will say 5 things. The CFP board says 5 things. I've, for 29 years, added a 6th thing, and now everybody knows about it. Number 1 is income. Everybody talks about income. Where's your income coming from in retirement? How much can it be? How much does it need to be? There's where the budget comes into place. What does our retirement look like? Do we want to travel and spend $30,000 a year on travel the first 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of retirement? Those are the kind of things we talk about in the envision. Income. Inflation, that's the one that I've included for 29 years that everybody's discovering now. You're going to have more money in your 80s than you do in your 60s to buy the same amount of stuff. Your investments, that's the 3rd thing. We talk about your investments. Do they need to be as risky as they are right now, as they've always been, to get you there? During the accumulation phase, you want to grow your money. You want to accumulate your money. During the retirement phase, that's called the preservation phase. You want to preserve your money. You want to make sure you don't run out of money during that time. So your investments are important. Taxes are important. Taxes are the biggest single thing that'll separate you from your retirement dreams, because they hit you. Social Security, income tax, property tax, everything gets taxed in retirement, just like it does all of the other times. Healthcare, big thing. How much are you going to spend in healthcare? And then legacy, leaving it. Those 6 things: income, inflation, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. That's in your retirement blueprint that we can help you put together.
I can't think of a better way to illustrate what it means to engage in the comprehensive, holistic planning process. We say this a lot on this show. How you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will affect all the others. That's why you have to look at how all these pieces fit together. So again, to claim your no cost, no charge, no obligation, personalized retirement blueprint, simply call 888-930-5609 or visit us online at at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. We'll be back with more right after this.
Can you remember how different life was when you were 10 years old and 20 years old and 30 years old? You could be retired for 30 years or more as well. Imagine the different stages you will experience in a long retirement. One of the biggest concerns for most retirees is running out of money in retirement. If you've never planned for decades worth of income spending from your investments, savings, Social Security, and other resources, you don't want to get it wrong. Actively plan for a successful retirement by working together with a financial advisor whose practice designs these retirement income strategies every day in their firm. Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management devises retirement income strategies for listeners just like you, and it's complimentary to get started. Call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management and ask for your own complimentary retirement income strategy. 888-930-5609.
Call Mosley Wealth Management for your own complimentary retirement blueprint and written financial plan. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and today Tom and I have been discussing balancing debt and saving for retirement. We're so glad that you're joining us. Tom, moving on in these steps, I know the next one we need to talk about is explore debt consolidation or refinancing options. And this is really interesting. You know, you hear a lot of times, I do anyway, those commercials on the radio about debt consolidation. You often hear about refinancing, but typically you hear about that when it's in a low interest rate environment. And recently we've been in a higher interest rate environment. So talk about these two things.
All right, let's talk about refinancing right now. You don't need to refinance your house right now, okay? Hands down, because used to you could get a loan maybe for less than 2%. Now you're getting loans for 6.5%. May go down, but right now refinancing your house is really not good. But you might need to refinance your CD. You might need to refinance your money market. Money markets in the banks right now are paying north of 3.5%, 4%. I heard a credit union recently that would lock in a money market for a year, and it was like 4.75%. Lock in a CD if you're a CD-oriented person. You need to shop around. You need to call banks because, yes, interest rates are beginning to drop down again in anticipation of further reductions by the Federal Reserve Board. But don't count on that. So you need to shop it around. If you're making nothing in a checking account that's got $200,000 in it right now, and you could put it into a money market that's making 2.5%, $200,000 in a money market making 2.5% will give you an additional $5,000 in a year. That's an additional $100 a week. That's real money, okay? So when I talk about refinancing, I'm really talking about being really a student right now of what rates are, and don't just sit there and do the same thing. Now, be careful. Be careful on the other side of this thing of consolidating your debt, because there are a lot of companies that will consolidate your debt and you walk away with horrendous credit for it. And they'll offer you, well, we got by with pennies on the dollar, because basically you just let go of your credit cards and you quit paying them. And there's all kind of comeback that those companies have on you from a financial standpoint. You don't want to ruin your credit and ruin your ability to buy a house, buy a car, do those kind of things. So be careful when you're dealing with a debt refinancing or debt consolidation company. Be careful for their interest rates. Overall, Kristin, a lot of people, they refinance their house. Not a good time to do it. That's one negative. And they take money out. I've always thought it strange that people would take a car loan that was really strapping them, that they had another couple of years to pay on, and maybe they owed $20,000 more on the car loan for another 2 years, and then they were done with it. And they added that on to a new home loan that they have 30 years to pay off, if you understand what I'm saying. So spreading it out might give you a little relief, but if you've got a problem running up debt, consolidation or writing off some of it might not help you. It might just give you a pass to get in further debt again. So you need to consider debt consolidation. Yes, be careful, but you also need to shop around and maybe refinance, not your house right now, but your investments. A lot of people that are coming to us right now because they have annuities that they bought in 2017, 2018, 2019, when interest rates were tremendously low, and you were loaning money to the insurance company. And yeah, even though it's got a 10-year surrender charge, they're finding it advantageous to refinance their annuity and get one of the newer annuities that are out there right now that are paying more interest rate, a higher interest rate in many cases, and they have a lot more bells and whistles. Even some of them are giving more of a bonus in real money than you're giving up on a surrender charge to get out of an old one. So if you're sitting there and you've got an annuity and you say, boy, this thing hasn't performed in the last 5 or 6 years, you're right. Maybe you need to refinance it into a better annuity with the interest rates as high as they are right now. Refinancing is terrible if you're borrowing money, but if you're loaning money, refinancing might be to your advantage right now.
Yes. And this is why this is such a time sensitive conversation, too, given where we are in today's economic landscape. So thank you for explaining both of those. I know the next step we need to talk about is building an emergency fund. This is so critical in this conversation of balancing debt and saving for retirement. I think a lot of folks hear about, oh, and I know I should have an emergency fund, but statistics show, Tom, that most Americans have less than $1,000 in an emergency saving account. We've got to fix this. People have to be prepared for emergencies.
Well, here's the problem. You get out and maybe you come to us and you've got a blueprint, or you go to somebody else and you get whatever they're offering you, and you've got a great financial plan, but you don't have an emergency fund. It's why it's part cash is king, and it's part of every fund that we build. How much money do you want to leave in the bank? On our boards, in all of our conference rooms, in all of our 5 offices, all over Southern California, there's a big yellow box up there on the board that says, how much money do you want in the bank? Cash is king. That's your emergency fund. Because what you don't want to do is build this beautiful house financially to live in, this beautiful blueprint that you've put together. Whoops, we didn't have an emergency fund, and we need $30,000 to put a roof on the house. So we have to go destroy that great financial plan. We have to dip into the retirement savings that are earmarked for something else. They're earmarked for income. They're earmarked for fund money, and you don't have that emergency fund. Or what's worse, Kristin, is you don't do that. So what do? Go put it on the credit card. And then you're back to what we talked about in the second segment. You're paying 22% interest on it, 25% interest on it, because you didn't have an emergency fund. How much do you put in there? Maybe a minimum of 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses so that you're liquid. A lot of people say, well, let's go more than that. Let's go 6 to 12 months. How much you have in your emergency fund is a feel question. Because if I talk to you and Charlie, Kristin, you and Charlie are going to have a feel for how much you want in an emergency fund. If you talk to Susan and me, our family is going to have X amount that we feel like we need to have in an emergency fund. And you know which one of those is right, Kristin?
Whatever's right for you as a person, right?
That is right. That is where, when you call in for a retirement blueprint, we can't send you one because we have to have all of your input in order to build you one. So that's why it's really important.
Yes, it's such an individualized thing. Again, if you want to claim yours, that number to call is 888-930-5609. You know, you mentioned folks dipping into their retirement accounts. And one of the most heartbreaking things we are seeing within the last couple of years is we have more people than ever before who are making early withdrawals from their retirement accounts. Here's the deal. Not only do you have to pay tax on that money, because the majority of that money is in tax deferred accounts, but you are also hit with that early withdrawal penalty of 10% if you're under the age of 59 and a half. This is a problem. A lot of folks are running to their retirement accounts and making these early withdrawals simply because they don't have the emergency fund.
You know, there's so many aspects of that too. The penalties you mentioned, the taxes, just by taking the money out, you've got to add that to your income for the year. If you have a $40,000 401k account and you're making $80,000 a year, you're a married couple making $80,000 or $90,000 a year, and you say, well, it won't hurt me that bad, but that additional 40,000 coming out of the 401k is going to bump you into the 22% tax bracket from a 12% tax bracket. So you not only have a bump up in your tax bracket, you've also got a 10% penalty for taking it out early. And that can significantly reduce your nest egg. Now, here's what hurts you when you tap your retirement accounts early. Let's just talk about the positive side of that the potential positive side. If the rule of 72 says that if anything you divide into the number 72, that if you divide that in, that's how many years it takes you to double it. So if you get 7.2% interest every single year, now you're 30 years old and you save $1, okay? By the time you're 40, if you're making 7.2%, you're at $2. By the time you're, without putting any more money in, by the way, Kristin, by the
That's the
time
best part, right?
yeah, no, it's compound interest. Mark Twain said it's the eighth wonder of the world. Okay. By the time you're 50, it's $4. By the time you're 60, it's $8. By the time you're 70, it's $16. How much did you put in? $1.
Yep.
You say, well, who would put in $1? Right. Let's put in you say, well, I'm just putting in $50. $50 that you would spend eating out or going out to your favorite beverage joint, okay? $50 on the weekend. Not uncommon for you to spend twice that much, but let's just use 50. You save $50 instead of spending it when you're 30. By the time you're 40 at 7.2% interest, that $50 is turned into $100. That $100 by the time you're 50 is turned into $200. That $200 is turned into $400 by the time you're 60. And by the time you get to 70 and you're in retirement, that $50 you save when you're 30 is now $800, okay? So what you're saving early, and the negative is tapping into that account early not only costs you penalties, taxes, a reduction in what your nest egg is going to be, but it also keeps you from getting that miracle of compound interest to be on your side rather than against you every single year of your life as you're saving. Listen, there's so many aspects. Thanks for listening to the show. Here's what I want to tell you. We've talked about balancing debt and saving for retirement. Just one of the many things that we do. Listen to us every week. It's not an infomercial. We do something different every single week. Just like we do something different for every couple, every individual, every single person, anybody who comes to see us, we do something different because you're all different. We build you your retirement blueprint from scratch, incorporating all of these ideas and all of the other ideas we talk about on this show every week. But to get yours, you've got to call us.
And that number to call is 888-930-5609. Listen, we know that this can be challenging to figure out how to balance debt with saving for retirement, but you don't have to go it alone. Tom has over 29 years of experience. He and his all-star team of 7 advisors spread throughout Southern California are ready and willing to help and serve you. So to get started on your retirement blueprint, simply call 888-930-5609, or you're welcome to visit us at MosleyWealthManagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. Thanks so much for being here. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next week here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management Incorporated. Mosley Wealth Management and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Insurance and Financial Services.